So let's get started. So who are these people? What is the organization? Who's sponsoring this? What is it all about? So we're coming to you from CLA headquarters here in Oak Brook Terrace, Illinois. We are the nonprofit trade association representing the laundromat industry. We've been doing so for more than 60 years now. We have a unbiased, agnostic resource for you. We're here to root for everybody. And like a lot of associations, part of our mission is education. And in our view, that should extend to those of you that are aspiring laundromat owners, because the more educated you are, the better decisions you're going to make, and it makes for a healthier industry for all of us. And so we like to take this time to do a complimentary program every month to try to answer those questions for you. Beyond education, we have networking and events. We do a lot of advocacy on behalf of the industry when it comes to legislation and regulation. And we also have a number of business partners that help us deliver good value for our members. So we'll be talking a little bit more about the association as we go along. And then it gets to these two characters. So my name is Brian Wallace. I serve as president and CEO of the Coin Laundry Association, CLA. And it's my pleasure to not just have the helm here with our dedicated full-time team at the association, but also have had a chance to spend the last 32 years plus spending a lot of time in laundromats, talking to a lot of people like Neal, who really know their way around the business. And my job is to sort of synthesize and share that information along the way. So I've had an opportunity to gain a little bit of expertise over time. And my good friend here is Neal Shapiro. And Neal, why don't I give you a chance to say a few words about your background and why I roped you into this today.
Well, Brian, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Neal Shapiro. I live in the northern suburbs of Chicago, and my wife and I own a laundromat in Chicago. We bought it about 10 years ago, actually to benefit our son, who is an adult with some disabilities, and it was really an adventure to see if we couldn't help him find more meaningful employment and be more productive in his day-to-day. So my wife and I both came from other careers. I owned and operated manufacturing companies for over 45 years. My wife has been an educator forever and started a preschool program for children, which she sold about 15 years ago. I sold my manufacturing in 2019. And so now I tell people I'm retired, which means I only work 5 days a week instead of 7. We have this laundromat, and we have a laundry pickup and delivery service. We are active in both businesses, although our son really is extremely active in the laundromat side of it. So that's my background.
No, thanks, Neal. And what Neal didn't mention is that beyond all the other commitments, he's also a volunteer with us here at the association. So he's serving on our board of directors, on our executive committee, is also a board member of our Laundry Cares Foundation. So we are helping you fill those days and then some as we go along. So all right, so for those of you that may have been joining a little bit late, just want to reiterate that yes, we are recording. Yes, we'll be sharing this all out with you, and we would love to answer lots and lots of questions. So find the question and answer tab on the toolbar. I'll also keep an eye on the chat box, but we're gonna sort of keep an eye on those questions while I share out some of the prepared material. And again, I've got my expert here that will help us work our way through. But let's just sort of get going with what are we even talking about here? What we're talking about, you've already heard laundromat, coin laundry, laundrette, washateria, lavanderia. We're just talking about a retail space where people come in to do their laundry. And so what we are not talking about is the vended laundry equipment that you would find in an apartment setting or dormitory, something like that. So we tend to say the word store, or laundromat to mean, a separate place where there's a business operating. Now, in that definition, we think there are about 29,000 of those in the US, probably well over $6 billion at this point. I'm going to share out some stats along the way, and these come from an annual benchmarking survey that we do, which is a great resource and is free to those that join our association. So I'll be giving you a couple of hints about some of the value of what the association brings along the way, but just by way of citation. And our most recent survey actually hasn't even been published yet, puts the average store at 2,850 square feet. The beauty of this business is that it's sort of scaled to the demand in the marketplace, right? So we've got tiny stores, we've got giant stores, and everything in between. So don't take that 2,850 as, well, that's the size that I need to build. It's really going to be dictated really by the market that you're operating in, or quite often the size is locked in, right, Neal? I mean, you bought a store, it was already had its footprint.
Right. We bought an existing store and everything was there. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's just to give you a little bit sense of scale. Most of our members are leasing their space. Some have been fortunate enough or had the resources or the opportunity to control the real estate to buy the property, but most are on a lease with a landlord in that retail location. That's the most common thing that we see. Just a little bit more about the demographic that we're serving. The primary core demographic would be that low to mid-income renter with kids, meaning that they may not have washers in their living space. I know in our webinar last month, I was reminded that a lot of markets, you have a lot of single family homes that are renters. Yes, those are good customers for us as well. So it's somewhere around this 20 million or so families that rely on our service. And increasingly, we're drawing more people in to our stores that may have a washer available to them, but opt for us when it comes to large loads and getting it all done at once. So Neal, I bet you see some mountains of laundry walk through the door, right?
And it just fascinates me. It astounds me when people come in to do their laundry and they bring more clothes than I own. It's unbelievable. I mean, literally pickup trucks or large vans, 8, 9, 10 laundry bags full of clothes. And to Brian's point, they may well live in an apartment building that has a couple of small residential washers and dryers down in the basement, but they would be down there for 2 days doing that laundry.
That's right.
They can come into our store and do it in 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, and you're going to hear that theme a lot, folks. I mean, our superpower, as it were, is the time savings and convenience. That's really what we're here to do. Everybody has laundry. No one likes to do laundry. If you have a lot of laundry, we can help you on that self-service basis. As Neal mentioned, he's got a residential delivery service as well. So we've got a number of different ways that we help people tackle this chore that they'd rather not tackle themselves, or at least don't want to spend all day doing laundry. So for this next portion, what I thought we would do, because again, we're here as an agnostic, we're here to just give you education. We love the business, but we're not here to recruit you. And so the next section here, I kind of have some reasons why we love the business, why our members are successful, the things that they look for. But then I'll balance that out with some of the challenges, pitfalls, obstacles, headaches, et cetera, that you might come across. And so I'll take that as a reminder to put your questions in the question box, put your questions in the chat. And like I said, we're going to keep an eye on this and answer your questions here along the way. So someone has to be first, and I'm going to keep an eye out for that first question that pops through. Okay. At the very essence, we are essential. We are not a luxury. We're not an optional type service. We're not elective. This is something that people need, and that has served us very well. And it often comes up in the context of being recession proof. I like to say recession resistant. We had the unfortunate test of the pandemic to show that we're pandemic resistant. As a matter of fact, we are able to lobby for that formal designation as an essential business to be able to stay open during the pandemic. So it's just one of those rock solid things that's there, rain or shine. People have to clean their clothes. And that's one of the things that has always attracted our members, particularly in the wake of the Great Recession and the pandemic, where a lot of people came to us saying, well, look, what's one of those things that might endure if things get tough? I don't know if that was ever part of your calculus when you were looking for a business.
No, and believe me, we certainly never anticipated a pandemic.
No
That
doubt,
was
no doubt.
beyond. Yeah. No, we were not necessarily looking for something recession resistant, but as it turns out, with now 10 years of experience, I can say that it definitely is recession resistant. I mean, everybody has clothes. Everybody wears clothes almost every day, and they get dirty. And sooner or later, they have to be cleaned. So the people come in every day.
Yep, you see a lot of those same faces
Oh, absolutely.
over and over and over again. We'll talk some more about that as we go. You know, one of the things that we tend to bristle at is the characterization of the business being easy. We tend to bristle at the characterization that it's passive or absentee. We're not subscribers to that manner of thinking. However, what we do think is that there's a simplicity to the business that a lot of people tend to like. Simple, but not easy. So if we had to sort of list out, and again, we can go on 3 hours just on this question, but what's key to success? Things like location, keeping the place immaculately clean, you have the equipment working, having a friendly attendant for customer service. But as any of you have probably seen, as you go out and look at existing laundromats, there's obviously a lot of people that have trouble executing on those simple principles, and that's where some of this opportunity comes to you. So easy, no. Simple, yes. And when it comes to this passive or absentee characterization, I haven't seen that in my 32 years where people just sit back. They can, however, build systems and come up with processes that optimize their time, where it's certainly not full time. And people are able to, what I've come to call, have a flex time business, right? So just like anything else, you need to put the time in, but you, aside from emergencies or an attendant doesn't show up or a burst hose, you can sort of dictate when you want to spend that time, throughout the week. So I think might be better to ask you, Neal, to sort of characterize this passive absentee versus maybe something that's just simply more flexible than a lot of other things.
Well, first of all, I would say it is certainly not passive income. I mean, to me, and I think you sort of defer to the tax code. I mean, passive income is when you own an apartment building, you never have anything, you have no presence there, you rent it to other people, the income is passive. Laundromats are not like that. It's a business, it is a retail business, it is a customer service business, and that's what it's all about. You can't just ignore it and then go there once a week and collect the money. It doesn't work that way. However, to Brian's point, it's not necessarily a 9 to 5 job unless you want it to be. We have, our store is open 24/7. We have attendants that are there every minute that we're open, and we usually have 2 people. Because of our pickup and delivery business, we have as many as 10 people working there during the 3rd shift at night, but we always have at least 2 attendants. Our store is 6,000 square feet. We serve anywhere from 125 to 150 customers a day, so it's a busy store. There's a lot of coming and going. I always joke that if our store was unattended, we would drown in dryer sheets within one day. If there's one thing I'd like to do, it would be figure out something to do with used dryer sheets.
my
We
goodness.
throw away
Yeah.
thousands and
Yeah, you need
thousands
to
of
put,
them.
it's almost like you need to hire an attendant just to pick up dryer sheets
Exactly.
around the clock. Well, that's an excellent sort of description of kind of the day in the life of what they're doing. But again, there's a lot of different models, everything from unattended to partially attended to fully attended and all the rest. But I just wanted to tackle this because, you know, some of what you see on social media may not have the same characterization. And so I just wanted to kind of give the point of view from the industry association, what that's all about. Another thing that I think a lot of our members like is that any individual with the time and talent and resources can build a great store, build a great business, meaning that it is a highly fragmented business. There really aren't any national chains. There are a couple of fledgling franchises, but really it's an owner operator, some would say mom and pop business. And you have that opportunity to compete with the best, you know, right out of the gate. And while there is some small scale consolidation, I've come to call it consolidation from within. In other words, well, maybe Neal's interested in a second store and he gets one, as opposed to someone coming in from the outside to roll up the business like so many other, you know, kind of Main Street businesses have found. So that aspect, I think our members like about the business quite a bit. So those are kind of a little summary of some of the positives that we've come to enjoy about the business. And of course, I always end this part of it with saying profitability, right? No one's in this for the love of doing laundry. They're here to make a profit, and it has proven to be a profitable business if you're able to execute on some of those keys to success.
Right.
Okay, well, good. Thanks, everybody. Now all of a sudden we got a bunch of questions. Dimitri, does the target demographics for self-service laundry hold true for wash, dry, fold business, or does the demographic change? I wonder if I could ask somebody who does that for a living. Okay, what would you say to that one for Dimitri?
I would say that those are two different demographics. Just as sort of a frame of reference, if someone comes into our laundromat and does their laundry, they're paying roughly 20 cents a pound to do it. If someone comes into our store and drops off the laundry, they're paying $1.40 a pound. So clearly two different price points and clearly two different demographics. Not to say that they don't coexist geographically. We have a good drop-off business and we have an excellent walk-in business. So they're both there, but they are different customers.
Yeah, and just anecdotally talking with a lot of successful operators, you know, sometimes they find themselves in some of these sort of tweener locations where rightfully they need to be right in the heart of that renter occupied household area, but they might be close enough to a market that might be a little bit more upscale, where they would be open to either a delivery service or come in and drop off the laundry. So short answer is that it is a different demographic. Let me jump over to the chat. Marcos, you had asked a little while ago, is it better to buy or build? I have a whole chart on that later in the presentation, but the short version is it depends. It depends. And I think that my general advice in that direction is a couple of things. One would be, you know, judge every business opportunity on its own merits. You know, so it's an opportunity to build, an opportunity to buy. You know, keep your eyes and ears open and keep an open mind. I would say that, you know, a lot of folks do enter the business with an acquisition. And we'll talk a little bit more as we go on here about some of the key elements of that. It's more expensive, obviously, to build from new, and there's a little bit more risk involved, but there may be more upside as you get to build it in your vision and have all the latest and greatest. Buying an existing store, you have predictable cash flow on day one, but you also have challenges like the due diligence on the purchase, the availability of stores to buy, terms and conditions of the lease, age and condition of the equipment. So, there are pros and cons to either approach, and we'll talk about some more of those as we go along. But anything you would add to buy or build?
No, I think you said it all. I don't think there is a clear answer. One is not necessarily better than the other. And it also depends on your financial situation and your, I guess I would say your timeline. If you build, you're going to own that real estate going forward, and you're not necessarily going to be able to flip it and get your money back in a short period of time. So that's a much longer term situation.
No, I think that's a good point. Marcos, you had a question here on the question and answer box. Most popular business setup designation, corporation, LLC, etc. It seems to me, Neal, that most of our folks are doing some type of LLC designation, and if they own the building, they might have the building in one LLC and have the business in another. Obviously, this is the old ask your accountant type question, but anything you would add to kind of the choice of entity?
No, I would say that. I mean, I would suggest that most laundromats are small businesses, and typically a small business would be an LLC. You wouldn't be a C corp. You'd be an LLC, and if you own the real estate, as Brian said, you typically put that in one entity, and then the operating business in another one.
Yeah, when I first started in the business, there were a lot of sole proprietorships, and then later S corps and so forth. But yeah, it depends on your situation, but I would say LLC is the more common way to go. Carol, you have a question, and that is, how do you handle machine maintenance, on call, maintenance contract? Neal, I'm sure you're handy, but I think you're among those that maybe doesn't make your own repairs. I don't mean to cast that on you, but how would you answer some common ways that folks take care of repairs and maintenance?
Well, first of all, we differentiate between repairs and maintenance. Repairs primarily is the equipment, the washers and dryers. Our son has learned over the years how to do some of the easier repairs, the drain valve that doesn't open, or the drain valve that doesn't close, or the door switch on the dryer. He can do those things, and that's great because he's there all the time. We have a contract with our local distributor for what I call the more heavy duty. The dryer needs a motor, or the washer needs a belt, or so more difficult stuff, more technical stuff. Then we bring a mechanic in who does that. And because of the size of our store and the amount of usage, we typically bring the mechanic in for half a day once every 2 weeks. So that's repairs. Maintenance, listen, there's a lot of maintenance. There's lighting, there's water heaters, there's vending machines, there's your POS system, there's the parking lot needs to be maintained. And typically our son does much of that as well, as do our attendants from time to time. They have certain responsibilities on the maintenance side.
Yeah, I think what I hear most from our members is, even if they're like me and don't know which way to turn a screwdriver, they learn quickly how to do those 5 or 8 or 10 most common basic repairs. And it's not just necessarily to save money, but it's that uptime I mentioned earlier. Because if you're waiting for someone to show up and make a repair, obviously that machine's not making money. So, but you can go as far as having a maintenance contract in place. You just need to build that into your plan, knowing that there's obviously an expense attached to that. I'm just going to keep going on some of these questions because you've really done a great job here. Michael, you're asking, are you seeing new technologies changing the market, either for the better or for the worse for laundromat owners? Well, I mean, I'll tee it up, and Neal can add to that. I would say that there's a couple ways technology has, I think, really helped the business. One has been in the utility efficiency of the equipment that we use, which is good for the environment, yes, but it's also our number one operating expense, or can be. So limiting that use of utilities is really key and has been a big deal. The second category that we talk about a lot is in the form of payments. And that's why you start to see more card operated options, debit, credit, loyalty card, mobile payments, phone payments being accepted. In some cases, that's the only form of payment, which I believe is what Neal's up to. And some will also take coins and the card type payment. So the technology in payments has been very helpful. Another category I would point to would be just the store management, the ability to sort of remote into a store and monitor what's going on, not just through video surveillance, but through network machines and being able to assess reports. Are we having a good day, having a bad day? So any other technology thoughts or things that you think in your 10 years has made things better or worse for you when it comes to technology?
Well, I think certainly the technology of the equipment has improved tremendously. I mean, when we bought our store 10 years ago, it had machines that were 10 years old at that time. We replaced those machines about 5 years ago, and our water consumption went down by about 30%. That is significant. Water is the largest utility bill we have, and utilities are clearly in the top 3 expenses of the whole business. So the equipment improvements have been fantastic. We are a card-only store. Our machines do not accept coins. You have to use the laundry card from our store, but we accept credit card, debit card, Apple Pay, the phone. We will accept cash. People will often come in with quarters. They're like, oh, what am I going to do with all these quarters? Well, guess what? We'll take your quarters and we'll put the money on the card.
Right, right.
But I think the ability to accept all kinds of payments is critical because, frankly, younger people today, and even myself, I mean, I'm using my phone for everything. And you have to be able to accommodate the customer that has a different kind of payment system. So,
yeah, no, I think a couple of good points there. I'm gonna pop over to the webinar chat, and let's see here. Tracy, your state law will determine amount if business personal property tax, if applicable in your state, i.e. Massachusetts corporation will not pay local tax. Actually, through work of the association, laundromats in Massachusetts are exempt from the personal property tax. So be sure to check in your area, but yes, in a lot of cases, the personal property tax does apply, and that's applicable to all that bright, shiny equipment that you've got in place there. So thanks for that, Tracy. Uma, you're asking, is there a market for a high-end boutique self-service laundromat? I've seen some, but I think it gets back to the location dictates that. So where I've seen some of those, it's been in Seattle or Manhattan or north side of Chicago in some cases that have sort of catered to that group. But I wouldn't say that that's the norm or even a significant part of the market. It tends to be more, I would say, utilitarian.
And I would say that perhaps if you talk about more affluent communities, you would lean more to the wash, dry, fold or the pickup and delivery, not the self-service walk-in laundromat.
Well said. I agree with that entirely. Okay, jumping over to the questions and answer box. Kia, starting a wash, dry, fold, pickup and delivery only. I'm going to service a high income, median income about 120,000 a year, lots of Airbnbs. Of course, high income area, the lease rent on buildings very high. I have 750 customers who signed up on my waiting list. I have demand. Blah, 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 blah. Well, I guess boiling down to your question, Kia, in your experience, how many one-time customers for pickup and delivery become repeat customers? And you would have a good insight into that because you do residential pickup and delivery.
We do residential pickup and delivery, like all such services, and we have a website, we have an app. When our customers sign up, they have a choice. They can be a weekly customer, in which case we automatically come on a certain day every week, or they can be by request, which they then decide when they want us to come. I don't think we have very many one-time customers. That's a lot, that's kind of a lot of effort to go to for just a one-off. I would say the vast majority of our customers continue with us for some period of time. That's not to say that we don't lose customers. People move, people didn't have washers and dryers, now they do, you know, they're remodeling their house, whatever. But we have a large number of customers that have been with us for many years, so.
Yeah, I think that's a typical experience. I mean, among our higher performing members, of course. Key is asking, what's a good abatement period to ask for starting out? So I presume you're trying to negotiate a fresh lease and you're trying to get rent abatement, which is delaying the starting point of where you're going to start paying the rent as opposed to a credit on the rent or free rent. So that abatement period, I see people on a new build, I would see people say, hey, give me 6 months. I see people say X amount of time from the time I get my CO, my certificate of occupancy, or the first day that I turn a washer, because where people do get in trouble, Kia, is that rent starts, but the store is not open for some period of time. Construction delays, you know, God knows what can happen there. So, but to answer, I think most people would ask for something along the lines of 6 months. You can ask for as much as you want, but you're still going to need to service that term of the lease. It's just at what point are you starting to pay? And all of us would rather start paying as we're getting dollars coming in the door.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that the landlord is going to be more generous if you have a longer lease than if you have a shorter lease. So that comes into play as well.
No, absolutely great. Awesome job on the questions. I'm going to pause. Carol's got a couple more. I see Brian's got a question, but we're going to get through a little bit more of this prepared material. And just to remind you that this portion was meant to kind of get back to, we told you all these wonderful flowery things about the business, but now we're going to talk about, you know, some of the challenges or some of the pitfalls, you know, that we see our members wrestle with. The first thing that I'm sharing here, I kind of got to this a little bit in the buy versus build conversation, which is scarcity. Especially in a market like today where laundromats are red hot, lots of people looking for existing stores. Depending on the market that you're in, there just may not be a whole lot for sale, or a whole lot for sale that are worth buying or at the right price or the right lease or the other considerations in place. And the same thing for a new build. You know, everybody's trying to bird dog locations, from the commercial equipment distributors to the franchisors to existing operators looking for their next location to first timers like yourselves. So that's not meant to discourage you at all. But I just want to prepare you for, you might find a great location week one, you might find a great store to buy month one, but that would be sort of the exception to the rule.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. And I tell prospective owners and existing owners all the time that really your distributor should be your best friend and your business partner. If you're particularly looking to build something new, The distributors have got their ear to the ground every single day. They know the territory, they know what's out there. They can be a tremendous asset to help you.
Absolutely, absolutely right. And we'll recap some of the range of services that a full service distributor would be bringing to the table for you, just to give you that context. Let's see here. Let me get back over to this screen. Okay. In so many words, I like to add the fact that I've dealt with plenty of prospective laundromat owners or existing laundromat owners who, just end up not being comfortable dealing with the public. If they're in a tough neighborhood or, it's just everyone's got a sort of a different worldview and a different kind of tolerance, I suppose. And, you have to be prepared for things that happen in places of public accommodation, and whether that be having some front row seat for homelessness, addiction, crime on occasion, but I wouldn't say on a regular basis.
All of the above.
Yeah. So it's just a nice way for me to say, and this is where I always reiterate this advice, one of the best things you can do of all the things we're going to talk about this morning, go do laundry. Put a couple loads of laundry in your trunk and drive around. And while you're researching this business, go do a lot of laundry everywhere. And you're going to learn what you like, what you don't like, get ideas for yourself. You may be building a kind of a profile of potential competitors. And you're also going to get a sense of, is this where you want to spend your time? Is that environment something that you're comfortable with? So again, I'm just trying to give you like it is. And these are the things that have come back to me over time as being a concern. So, the go do laundry is an important part of it. But having done this as long as I have, I would say that the number one obstacle that I hear about and work with our members about is simply having the financial wherewithal to do the first project. Kind of that initial capital investment, if you will. So let me try to put some context around that. So again, maybe you're in a position where you can write a check and you're good to go. But one of the challenges for most of the people I talk to is having that initial cash required. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about finance options in a few minutes, but existing laundromats, you can find them from a couple $100,000 to a couple million. Depending on what's what. So that is kind of evident in terms of what you're going to need. And then the acquisition financing that you'll find out there these days would typically require a 30, maybe even a 40% down payment on an existing store if you're going to be financing it. Maybe you can find less or a better deal, but I'd rather give you the higher end of the range just to be sure. When it comes to building out a new store, and for this context, I'm being very precise. I'm talking about a build out in an existing space that you don't own, you're renting, and we're converting that space or have a vanilla box, and we're going to put equipment in it. We're going to make the leasehold improvements. We're going to build it out to be a laundromat and be open for business. I think you should start at $300 to $400 a square foot. I hear projects going for less. I hear a lot of projects going for more than that, but I just want to I can't tell you that the biggest obstacle is having the initial wherewithal to build your first store without giving you some range. But
So, let me just question,
Yeah.
does that include the equipment?
yes, sir. Yeah.
Oh, okay, including the equipment.
Including the equipment. Right. So, I hear a lot of markets. I try to ask this question everywhere I go. And I'm hearing a lot of $100 to $150 just for the build out portion,
Right.
Utilities and so forth, and the balance being in the equipment. So there are numerous variables, and you really have to get a real quote on a real project to really understand it completely. One of the things I see come up a lot is the so-called infrastructure. You hear that among some of the folks online, get an existing place that's got the infrastructure. Well, yes, there is a lot of benefit to that, but not all infrastructure is created equal, right? I mean, you've seen it a million times. Well, there's a 200 amp panel for electricity, and you need a 400 or a 600. You've got
or 1200.
or 1200, or you've got a 1-inch meter and you need a 2-inch meter. These are things that are not small dollar amounts. These are tens of thousands, or even could be 6-figure differences. So do your homework. But if you're just trying to get a sense, you're saying, Brian, that average store you gave us earlier is over $1 million build out. Yeah, 2,800 times. You're talking about that range. So you can buy stores for less. A lot of those do need to be re-equipped. So that's another caution that I give. I find working with a lot of members that say, Brian, I'm going to buy this store for 300, and is it a right deal? Then I said, have you gotten a quote on the re-equipping? Because the equipment in there is 18 years old. And I'm saying, well, that re-equipping part of it might be double what you spent to buy the business. Right. And are you really accounting for all of that? So just a few cautionary things in this section, which is, trying to be a little bit realistic about some of the challenges. But those are some of the challenges that we see: availability of locations and stores to purchase, the initial cash investment, and not everybody's comfortable with dealing with the public.
I agree with all of that.
Okay.
I agree with all of that. And I think this concept of dealing with the public, if you have previous retail experience, great, then you undoubtedly know what you're getting into. If you do not have previous retail experience, I have to tell you, dealing with the retail public is a real adventure. And
especially these days, right?
Yeah, but I mean, and it can be wonderful. I love going to our store and seeing our customers and talking to them and enjoying time with them. I love that. Some people don't. I have known owners who intentionally only go to the store when it's closed.
Yeah.
They want to collect the money. They don't want to see the customers. They don't want to be bothered with it. They're not comfortable with them. So that's really something that you need to make sure you understand before you jump into it.
Yeah, no, well said. Thank you for tying that off for us. Carol, you've got a question about how much you charge per pound for pickup and delivery. Because we're a trade association and we're governed by certain antitrust rules, we try to stay away from matters of price. What I can share with you, because it's in the form of a survey response that's vetted, off the top of my head, the walk-in drop-off national average is somewhere in the $1.40 something a pound. And the pickup and delivery is closer to about $1.70 a pound. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, what you should do or shouldn't do, but those are the statistical averages that we can share. And we find that our members tend to charge a lot more than non-members, if it's fair to say that, because they're probably delivering a higher level service. So those averages tend to trend on the lower side.
Can I say that people can feel free to contact me after the meeting?
Sure.
There you go.
Or maybe even a website they could visit to see what you're charging,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is totally fine. Carol, you had another question. What type of insurance do you hold for clothing damage? Well, there is a type of coverage called Bailey insurance, Bailee, Bailey insurance, that covers customer goods that are in your care, custody, and control. A lot of basic business policies include some coverage, minimum coverage for Bailey, but it is one of the things you should look at, particularly if you are going to do wash, dry, fold, or delivery and have more garments on hand. So just ask about Bailey insurance. Even better, CLA, we have our own insurance program. We've been doing it for 35 years, 36 years. And we make sure that your policy has you adequately covered, but it's called Bailey insurance. That's a short answer. Let's see here. Brian, you asked earlier, how essential is it to convert older coin machines to newer tech with cards? What's the general ROI on doing so? I wouldn't be surprised if that store, was your store card operated when you bought it?
It was.
Okay, so you
It
didn't have
was-
to do the conversion.
It was a card store. I would suggest that if your equipment is more than 10 years old, you may get a good ROI if you change the equipment just based on energy utility
Right,
savings.
right.
I don't know that you get a cost reduction for using cards versus coins. That's a whole situation of the management features you get with card systems. Do you want to walk around with 5-gallon buckets full of quarters? There's a lot of reasons to move into a card system, but I don't know that it's necessarily ROI.
Yeah, it tends to be a part of the overall branding of the business. This is a convenient place to do laundry. I don't have to mess with quarters is typically what I hear. And then what I hear from the management side, like Neal said, it's a heck of a lot easier to run a store that doesn't have the quarter factor, or the quarter is the only form of payment. So it's another good point to say in our annual survey that I've touched on a few times. Now the majority of laundromats are what I would call hybrid. They are accepting quarters and credit, debit, loyalty card, mobile payments, etc. So that is now 50-some%, 58% of the overall market, and only about 15% would be so-called coinless. And obviously very few anymore that are quarter only. I think, in fact, our latest survey, it's dropping below 30% of stores being on a quarter only basis. For successful new build, do you recommend a minimum in facility size and number of machines? I guess I revert back to some of our discussion around the size of the store to a large extent should be driven by the market demand. So
Right.
if you're in a rural area, you have a small store with fewer machines. And if you're in the boroughs of New York City, you build it as big as you can with as much equipment as you can. And then in between, it's a little bit more of an art and science to try to get that dialed in. I hear from a lot of members, Neal, that say, hey, it's not worth it unless it's at least a X number of square feet, 3,000, 4,000. I guess that's a matter of, opinion and what you're trying to get accomplished. But we've got plenty of members that, obviously lower volume, but have a 1,500 square foot store or 2,000 square foot store. So, I think successful is a matter of, are you talking about the margin that you're operating at or the volume of profit? The volume of profit, you need a bigger store.
Right. And I mean, first of all, depending on how many hours you're open a day, a washing machine can only cycle so many times in those number of hours. And you can do the math. If you're vending for $5 and you turn the machine 8 times a day, that's $40. How many machines like that do you need if you want to make $50,000 a year, and how much space is that going to take? So again, you can have a very successful store. You can have great EBITDA percentages and everything else, but you're not going to feed a family of 4 if the store is 1,000 square feet.
Well, that's why you see a lot of people in those markets, they have 3 or 4 or 5 stores.
Right.
So they're not going to live off of one store, but they start to, add additional units, then, then that, makes the case for them.
The other thing that I would interject is when you think about a store, and obviously if you're going to build one or build out a space, it isn't just about the washers and the dryers. You need to have room to walk between the aisles. You need to have room for the laundry carts. You need to have room for folding tables. If you have a decent sized store, you need to have a play area for the kids with a read, play, learn center. Those are all additional things that you have to figure into the size of the store.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. So Well, let's do this. We've got more questions in queue, but let's cover a few more slides. Valuation. Many of you ask about what's it worth, and that's a 3-hour discourse on its own, but we'll try to do it in just a couple of minutes here. Typically, Neal mentioned EBITDA. Typically, laundromats are selling on a multiple of that net. The historic range would be 3 times to 5 times the annual net. That doesn't mean necessarily what they were worth. That's just most stores sell in that range. I would say that valuations are skewing higher these days based on that market demand that I've mentioned. And really the real gems are getting much higher valuations on a historical basis. So you might see 6s and 7s and 8s, but it tends to be a store that's large, fairly fresh equipment, plenty of time left on the lease, and it's just sort of a high performer. But there's plenty of stores that sell for 2 or aren't worth buying at any price. But a couple more things I'll add here on valuation. That multiplier is really driven by the net income, the amount of income that's there, but really the age and condition of the equipment and the duration of the lease.
Critical, absolutely critical. And if you don't have a lease, you don't have a sale. I mean, you have nothing to sell if you don't have a lease. And the equipment is critical. I mean, if your equipment is 15 or 20 years old, the buyer is going to say, okay, well, I'll give you 6 times minus the cost of all new equipment. And now all of a sudden you might have a negative number. It depends.
Yeah. That's someone had put in here asking about common mistakes, and that is one of the biggest ones I've seen. And sometimes people call and join in time, and sometimes they don't. But you pay the asking price for the business on the assurance that the equipment is perfectly fine. And then you're a couple months in and say, well, the stuff is trashed out. And now I've already got a note on buying the business and whatever I put down on that. And now I need to go out and get some equipment. And that double whammy is really difficult to dig your way out of. So I just always put that out there of, even if you think the equipment is great and you can do some more work on that in the due diligence, but still always get a quote on the what if. Maybe it's 5 years or 8 years or 10 years, but get a quote on what that equipment re-up is going to look like, because that's where a lot of these stores fall into that zombie mat category, is that no one was really in a position or didn't plan to recapitalize the business in a sense, which is buying new equipment, modernizing.
Right. And when you talk about re-equipping a store, they're not small numbers.
No.
If you're talking about a 5,000 or a 6,000 square foot store and you have to buy all new equipment, it's $1 million like falling off a log. So it's not insignificant amounts of money.
Yeah, no, well put. And that's one of the things. And as Neal alluded to, you can't pick up and move a laundromat. So your lease is your lifeline. That is what's protecting that cash flow. It's finite. And when I talk to a group of existing laundromat owners, I say one of the best things you can do today to increase the value of your store is to get more time on your lease, negotiate an additional option on the back end, add a 5-year, add a 3-year. Those are things that add a lot of value to those of you that are looking to get into the business. And when you do look at the listings of stores for sale in your area, don't be shocked to see stores with old equipment and short leases.
That's the kiss of death.
That's a tough one. And, one of the other things is due diligence is a challenge, right? Because it's a cash business, and I don't want to get into all the details on the due diligence, but we do have some good resources on that. We've got white papers, deep dives on all of these topics that we've been musing about, and due diligence is one of those challenges. Okay. Let's talk about financing, and then I'll jump back into your questions here. We got about 30 minutes remaining. I sort of alluded to a lot of this earlier, so let's just jump in here. Most of the first timers that I work with they're on an upstart, right? They're trying to cobble it together. They've got some savings, they need to get a loan, maybe they need to bring in a partner. They're trying to do a couple different things to make this first leap into the business. So, but here's some of the common options. Conventional lenders, if you're already in business and already have a good relationship with a bank, you're golden. That's usually a really good path. They know you, you're vetted, and you're good to go. A conventional bank where you don't have a relationship, it's difficult at times to find those that have an appetite for small business lending. And then when you say a laundromat, they look at you, a what? A laundromat? Because they haven't done a laundromat loan before, right? And so another option that I kind of put under that conventional bank would be an SBA guaranteed loan, where you need to find that local bank that has an appetite, number one, and even better, they need to have what I call like an SBA Sherpa, an SBA guru on their team that can kind of lead you through all that paperwork and requirements to get on board. And if you can make it happen with the SBA, often there's longer terms and lower rates and other encouragement, but there's a heavy lift to do that.
I would add one other thing about conventional bank financing. The banking industry has a million different rules and regulations that the individual banks have to comply with. But one of the things that particularly local and community banks have to do is lend in areas that are underserved. And if you can find that bank that needs loans in the area where you want to be, that's makes it a real lot easier.
Yeah, and sometimes those same locations are in enterprise zones or words to that effect, where there's maybe the municipality will provide some additional support and an incentive. So get creative and look for what's out there. Forgive me for not remembering who it was, but one of you had asked about seller financing. Yes, I mean, it's nowhere near as common as how it's portrayed in social media and YouTube. When I got in the business, seller financing was all there was really for acquisitions. I find it relatively scarce, particularly since the 2008-9 Great Recession. I see where sellers are really looking for cash buyers and are not really super interested in extending financing and being the bank themselves. That's why I put it here, limited opportunities, but you could ask. Sometimes there are circumstances where that does make sense. Maybe there's a tax scenario for the seller that makes sense. I don't recommend this, but I found this used in cases where the records are a disaster in the due diligence process, and the only way to get a deal done was to have the seller with some skin in the game as the lender. But really most are not going in that direction. So the most common that I see is what I'm going to call captive lenders, industry specific lenders, laundromat lenders, and that's what they do. They lend on laundromat projects, and they are often affiliated or owned by one of the equipment manufacturers, and they've kind of created this ecosystem to provide the financing for the purchase of their equipment, which works to their advantage and often works to your advantage, because again, these other options, where's your 2 years experience in the business? Where's your,
Right.
And so many of you are just getting started. And so those industry lenders, they know the business, they're looking at the demographic report, they're looking at the pro forma, they don't want to make loans that go bad. And so, yes, they like to make a loan to you and make a profit, but they're also giving you some additional oversight on the project that you're embarking upon. So, and there are some independent ones as well. And again, any of these vendors that we're referring to, coinlaundry.org, our website, all of our member companies are listed in a directory that you can search by state or by offering. So you can search for finance companies and you'll see the 4, 5, 6 that are members of the association, and use that to your benefit. Okay, let me jump into some more questions here. John, I'm interested in buying a laundromat that isn't currently for sale. It's in great condition, though it does need some machines and some renovation. How do I go about approaching the owner to buy the business? Is this a good idea? Would the owner typically be open to selling in the situation? What's the best way to make an offer? Well, I've certainly had some member experience with this, and I'll kick it off and let Neal talk about how he might respond or has responded. I'm sure you've had people knock on your door.
Right.
So yeah, we've found members that'll walk in and try to find the owner and just say hello and, hey, are you interested? And some get, oh no, not right now. Some will kick you right out the door and slam the door in your face. We've had members write letters to every laundromat in the area, send a postcard, drop a business card, and all the above, just to make people aware. And I've had members say, Brian, it was 2 years later and that guy called me because it was time to sell.
Right.
So most people that are in the business that are doing it successfully obviously are holding on to that business, right? They're not looking to sell. And a lot of times when these stores come to sale, it's got some issue, as I mentioned earlier, with equipment or lease, or there's some kind of life event. There's an illness, there's a divorce, there's a death in the family, something else that brings about a sale. So I'd be interested, because I know it's happened to you. You've had people walk in the door and say, are you for sale?
Absolutely. We've had people come in literally and they say, is the owner here? And they're interested in buying a laundromat. We've received letters from potential buyers. We've received solicitations from brokers. We obviously are in contact with our distributors, and the distributors are always inquiring, what's your plan? What do you think? So, yes, it goes on all the time. I would suggest, and I think you said you have a particular store you're interested in, walk in and see if the owner's there, find out, get a phone number. It never hurts to ask, because to Brian's point, you don't know. Life event may have happened last week and the owner may say, you know what? Yeah, I think I want to sell this store. So walk in and ask. It's the simplest way to do it.
Yeah, just have some tough skin and just know that not everybody's going to welcome that, but you may very well find an opportunity that way. And I've got a video on YouTube that kind of talks about how to find a store for sale. And part of that is kind of building out your laundromat network. And that is getting involved with the association, getting to meet other owners in the area. If we're having local meetings, go to a local meeting. If the local distributor is putting on a sales show or a service seminar, just start showing up. And that really helps you get connected. Introducing yourself to the local equipment guys is also a very good strategy, because they would like for you to be a customer someday. And they may have an opportunity with another customer where they can put the two of you together to make a purchase. And oftentimes there's an equipment need that comes along with that. It gives them some motivation to do some matchmaking. So those are all things that you can see happen. Arian's asking, I was told equipment manufacturers offer lease deals on equipment versus purchasing. No, there are no.
I don't think so.
It may be an equipment lease in the sense that, kind of one of those dollar buyback type of scenarios, but you are buying the equipment on a finance basis. You're not leasing it like you're leasing a car.
Right. No, I've not heard of any lease deals.
No, that is not happening, but I'm glad you asked. So I'm sure other people may have had that question. Let's see here. Kia's asking, how are gig economy businesses like Poplin and Laundry Care affecting the pickup and delivery service? Do you find yourself up against some of these, I guess, kind of lower price options in the market?
Are they there? Yes. I mean, sometimes I'll get emails at home and they'll be offering to do my laundry. Yeah, they're there, and I'm sure they have some segment of the market. But if a customer a prospective customer would say to me, we're looking at your app here and your price is X, but so and so is willing to do it for $1. I'd say, well, try it. I don't know. I'm not willing to do it for $1. So give it a try. What you're
Yeah.
going to get is somebody who's
Yeah.
working in their house and, they may or may not come and pick it up or deliver it when they say. I don't know. To me, and I'm not saying that the gig economy is necessarily bad or subpar, but uh, it just doesn't compete with a business that's serving 150 customers a week. It just doesn't.
Yeah. Well, and part of this wash, dry, fold, either on a walk-in or pick up a delivery, or I see a question from Kiki about commercial accounts. Part of that is you built this laundry factory, right? Equipment, utilities, high capital expense. And yes, you make it available to self-service customers and you love their business, but there's downtime. And you have this facility in place, so why not put it to use? And you mentioned a third shift earlier. Yes, that's kind of a way that people go about it. And a lot of the gig workers are going to a laundromat to do this, or they're going to a home, or they're going to an apartment facility. And some will say, hey, I set up a deal and I give them a discount, or other people say, don't use up all my washers. Those are for my customers. And so you kind of see everything in between. So thanks, Kia. All right, so let's get back into a few slides here. We got about 20 minutes to go. You guys have been outstanding with the questions, but there's some more basic content I want to make sure I shared with you. And what I have for you here is some expense ratios directly from our survey. In fact, I updated these yesterday. This is not even published yet, but you've got the latest data. Actually didn't change a whole lot over the last year. So utilities, rent, and payroll. Those are
the big three.
Those are the big three. And once you get beyond that, you get into the low single digit, as an expense ratio. So for every dollar of revenue, according to the survey here, you're spending 20 cents to pay water, sewer, gas, and electric. Rent, most people target 20%. The average is always higher than that. This year, closer to 24% of gross sales. And payroll kind of depends on how you're equipped, but these days with minimum wage increases in some of these markets, it's pushed up past the 20% mark to 22%. So again, I'm just trying to give you some context of what the averages are and what some of the targets are. And this can be a good tool when you're looking at an existing store for a potential purpose. Because if you start doing some basic math and some of these ratios are out of whack, either to the positive or to the negative, just know that you have some more questions that you're going to want to ask.
Right.
Yeah, imagine when you bought that store, the utility percentage was on the high side.
Well, interesting. I mean, we are in the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago water cost has more than doubled in the 10 years that we've owned the store. City of Chicago minimum wage has probably tripled in the 10 years we've owned the store. So obviously we've raised our prices. These percentages that you have on the screen here are pretty close to where we are today.
Yeah.
So
good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's a good edification of that. But I think that could be a tool for you to use. Again, right from our survey, this is not a guarantee. This is not a projection. This is not anything else but what the stats say. And it does tie back to that 2,850 square foot store, right? So on a cross-tab basis. So the revenue being in this, when the median and the mean are close in statistics, that's usually a good sign. So you can do your math there, whatever that's, $120 a square foot or something like that, based on the 2,850. In terms of profit margin, the average being at 25.5, the median at 27, so half above, half below. Plenty of stores not making any money, plenty of stores doing 30 or 40%, right? So it's just really a matter of what you're talking about. And again, this net profit is before any debt service, just the operating operating net the way we do our survey. So again, don't take that to the bank, but it's giving you some sense of what is out there in the market. This next chart comes from the same survey, which speaks to the year-over-year industry growth. And so it's just an interesting 5 years to look at,
For sure.
given 2020. So here's what our survey came up with, which I go further back. So this 5, 6, 7% was pretty typical, again, for the industry as a whole. Again, pandemic resistant. So we're -7%, not -50% or 70 or 80%.
Right. Or closed.
Or closed. Talked to a lot of our dry cleaning friends. They would have killed for a -7.
Yeah.
And picking up even further in 2023, according to our survey. That's not a guarantee. That's not what your store is going to do. This is what collectively the stats say for the industry across the board. I promised you a buy versus build chart, and I'm not going to read it back to you because we talked about a lot of these considerations. But, again, let each project kind of live and die on its own merits. If we haven't beaten the dead horse of the lease to death, we're going to do it one more time because it is so important. This is all about the lease. So if it's a new store, making sure that you have enough runway at the right price and the right rent escalations and the right fine print, frankly, to have a successful business going forward. If we polled 100 of our friends in the industry on a new store, they would say, try to get 25 years. Maybe it's a 10-year and 3 5-year options or 10 and 2 5-year options, something along those lines, because you need that runway to pay off your note on the equipment. You're going to need to re-equip at some point. You're going to need to maybe sell at some point. And you want to have enough time remaining for an educated buyer. And that's a process of trying to maintain that additional time on the lease. For an existing store, people ask me, what's the minimum? Boy, I hear a lot of, oh, there's 2 years left, there's 3 years left. Or I had one member put on an offer on a store and the lease was month to month. I said, what are you buying?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. What are you buying? So we were able to steer them clear of that. 10 years is kind of what I say. You can make an argument at 8, I suppose. But remember that you need enough time to cover your debt service. The lender is probably going to want the term plus maybe even a year or two. And so it's just a real tough one if there's not time left on the lease. Now, can you make an offer that's contingent upon extending the lease? Sure, that happens all the time. But the end of the road, you need to make sure that before you sign the bottom line, you've got ample time remaining. And of course, back to the expense ratio, that it be affordable. And then pay an expert, at a minimum, a commercial real estate attorney, even better. Also get someone who's in the industry to look at your lease, because there are some industry specific elements that are important. Anything you would add to the lease parade that we were putting on here?
Well, I would only add that I think options are a very powerful tool for the buyer. If you have a 10-year lease with 2 5-year options, you have control of whether or not you want to continue. So I think options are a powerful tool that you should include if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I say 25 years, that would typically be broken up into 3-year or 5-year options, maybe a longer initial term followed by shorter options. So, and we have got videos, we've got white papers, we've got personal advice. We have people that join, and then we'll talk about their lease with them as part of their membership consultation. Rob, you asked in both interfaces here, estimate of washer and dryer units per 1,000 square feet you can fit into a store. It's so tough, Rob, because you've got, in some markets you still have single load top load machines. You have the kind of the residential style front loader that's kind of a double load machine, or a little short of a double load machine. But really, more often than not, you've got the 30 pound, 40 pound, 50 pound, 60 pound, 80-pound, even 100-pound capacities. And you can imagine the footprint for those machines getting larger and larger. So what I would say is kind of a general way of looking at it is that people are building larger laundromats within the same footprint because of the multiple capacity, right? So a 5-load machine doesn't take up 5 times the space of a single load machine. But I have not come across a ratio on a per 1,000 square foot basis. And again, your distributor would be well suited to project that for you, should give you a pro forma, should give you drawings, should give you a first run at a layout for the store on that basis. Would that be your experience?
No, I mean, absolutely. Again, your distributor is your business partner. And absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be talking to the distributor ahead of time, especially if you want to build from the ground. The distributors will give you layouts. They'll show you, using their past experience. So, just in answer to your question, I'm not suggesting that my store is necessarily average or normal, but I'll tell you what, we have a 6,000 square foot store. We've got 2, 4, 6, and 8 load machines.
Okay.
And we've got double stack dryers. We've got 50 washers and 75 dryers in 6,000 square feet. We also have a space with 25 folding tables, and we have about 500 square feet of the children's area. So give you an idea.
Well, and another thing that comes into play here, Rob, is that one of the big design trends for new laundromats and retooled laundromats is wider aisles, and in some cases much wider aisles, and having just a lot more elbow room and comfort for the customers. And part of that is because these are stores that are leaning on those 4, 6, and 8 load machines, 40-pounder, 60-pounder, 80-pounder. And even larger than that. So wider aisles is definitely one of the trends that we're seeing here. Janelle, you've been so patient. My plan is to build on a commercial property I own. What type of space do you recommend for outside of the store? Car vacuum, dog area, picnic tables, etc. I've seen some of the car vacuum stuff in some markets, but I would say that most is just have a clean, safe parking lot, and there's really not a whole lot that folks tend to do outside of that. Can you think of any common ones anyway?
Well, no, and I can't think of other things. I can suggest to you that, first of all, the parking lot should be as big as you can make it.
Yeah, how much parking do I need?
Yeah, you
Infinite.
need more. You
Infinite.
need more.
You need more. There's never enough.
Never enough parking. Your parking lot should be fenced, if at all possible. It should be well lit, and especially if you're open 24 hours, man, you need to light that like crazy, because then people will feel safe. Put trash cans out there. I can't tell you, our attendants clean the parking lot 3 times in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Every shift has to go out and clean the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that if you have car vacuums, in fact, I had suggested that to my wife, and she said, no way. She said, what? Everybody's going to dump all their trash in the parking lot before they vacuum. So you're going to have 1 million beer cans and everything else. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
So keep it simple, but there's a great way to interject parking into the conversation that we hadn't touched on yet, because you absolutely need to have good, safe parking, and yes, be prepared to pick up the empty detergent bottles and fast food wrappers and all that kind of stuff.
Used batteries.
Yeah.
Antifreeze containers.
Antifreeze, all those kind of things. Let's see. Arian, you're asking about water usage and discharge. How do you project it? That would be, again, on an existing store, you look at the bills, ideally as part of your due diligence process. If it's a new store, you would base it on the pro forma projection that your distributor is furnishing to you. Let's see, Marcos, sample business plan. We've got a good white paper, Marcos, on business plans. And so it's kind of gives you an outline of the things that you need to do. And all these 15 or so white papers come free with membership in CLA. I sort of call it getting your undergrad in laundromats. Get your bachelor's in laundromats, consume these white papers, watch the videos, and I'll give you some more information on membership here in just a moment. But everyone who joins, they automatically get a link to my personal calendar to book a consultation. So with the discount, it's about a $500 membership. So just know that includes a lot of those resources that we've touched on, the survey data, the white papers, but also a personal conversation with someone who knows the business. And I know other people that have answers too. So if I don't know the answer, I've got other people that I can, that I can tap into. Dimitri, can you repeat what the average square foot of the store? Yeah, so the beginning slide said 2,850 square feet was the statistical average. So that ties back to some of the other revenue numbers that we had shared earlier. You're welcome, Janelle. Andrew. All right, Andrew just gave you a link to membership, and I'm going to give you a promo code here in just a second. Michaela, why was 2023 such an increase versus the comparable years? I don't know. I mean, the industry has just been on fire.
The industry has been on fire, and there have been a lot of new stores built, and the trend is for them to be bigger and beautiful, and that's great. I think it attracts customers. The laundromat as a business was not considered a very attractive business 15 or 20 years ago. Today, laundromats are big and they're beautiful and they're kind of fun, and people are not unwilling to go to a laundromat. So,
yeah, no, good answer. And Key, I see you're asking about pricing by the pound versus per the bag. We have a seminar on that very topic next week in Nashville at our Wash, Dry, Fold conference. And it's a matter of preference, Kia. You have probably the majority are doing by the pound, a relative handful doing bag pricing.
right.
But again, that's one of those less filling tastes great type of debates.
I don't know that one is necessarily better than the other. And I think it depends on your market also.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice. So let's talk about some more resources. Our YouTube channel, hundreds and hundreds of videos. We'll add this video to it, but we'll also send it to you. Lots of resources that are available to you. You can find us on the socials. And with Andrew's help, I did a series of Laundromat FAQs. So they're little 6, 7, 8-minute videos on some of these key topics. So lots of things that you could take advantage of to learn a little bit more. Yes, Andrew, our Wash, Dry, Fold conference next week, how to calculate dryers versus washers. I think Neal's got a healthy capacity ratio for dryers, probably more than most. I would say that, the old rule was 1 for 1, but I think more of
not with 60 and 80 pound washers.
No, so you need to have more capacity. So what I like to do is count up the entire poundage. Okay, there's 3 20-pound washers at 60 pounds. I go all the way through. All right, I've got a 2,000-pound store. So at a very minimum, I need to be able to dry 2,000 pounds. Better yet, 2,200, 2,400, 2,500, because you do have those bottlenecks that appear during peak periods on the weekends, and you don't want to have a throughput issue when it comes to that. Again, your distributor should be making these recommendations to you in terms of making sure you have enough capacity.
Right, and the other thing is you might have a 30-pound washer and the customer's going to use 2 30-pound dryers, because that's what they want to do. And they're the customer.
They
right?
overload washers and underload dryers is an absolute rule. So there are some resources here for you to take advantage of. We have, I know there's a bunch of Facebook groups, but we have Laundromat Professionals as our Facebook group that Andrew manages for us. You see him in the chat. We have a number of our business solutions. I mentioned CLA insurance earlier. We also have utility buying help, digital marketing help. So as an association with our buying power, we're able to tap into some additional things that can help you. And again, you can look at this further when you get a copy of the presentation. Yes, we have a dedicated conference. Just all of you that have had wash, dry, fold, and delivery questions. We've got a conference next week that is dedicated just to that. It's an awesome conference. The phone's been ringing here all day, people signing up last minute. So feel free to join us if you really want to accelerate your learning curve dramatically. Invest in the time and dollars to come see us next week. Brand new, actually, I think you're the first group to catch wind of this, is that we have our first in-person workshop for new investors coming in November here in Chicago. We are going to take a deep dive for a full day into all these topics with peer instructors. And so again, this is a big investment for you, and so you can't do too much research or homework. So we're going to make this available to you, and then we're going to repeat it in a few other cities in the spring of 2025. So mark your calendar. Love to have you come see us here in Chicago for that as a resource. And then again, joining the association, it's again a nonprofit agnostic resource that's here to help you. We have the knowledge base of Neal and lots of others like him that really understand this business and can give you unbiased, straight ahead, unvarnished information about the business. And there's a little promo code here, Save 100, that you can use. Just go to the website or use the QR code here. And we'd love to have you as a member, and I'd love to see your name pop up on my calendar so we can have a chat sometime soon and help you with your project.
And I would add that when Brian talks about joining the CLA, you're not just getting the association and the wonderful association staff. Frankly, you're also getting access to the entire membership. And if you go to one of these conferences, if you go to a Connect Live meeting in your area, you're going to learn very quickly that this is an industry full of people that are not unwilling to help you. It's not like we're all keeping our secrets so tight. Hey, there's not a very secretive business.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And the owners and the operators are absolutely willing to talk with other owners and operators and absolutely willing to help. So
awesome. Well, we've hit our 90-minute mark, the fastest 90 minutes in laundry. And thank you, my friend. It's been a pleasure to have you here. You really helped these folks quite a bit. And for all of you out there, CLA is ready to be part of your journey. And we wish you the best of luck and look forward to helping you next time.
If someone wants to talk with me later, can they get my information from you? Or
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just send us a note.
I'm available to talk with anyone. I love talking about laundry.
And thank you for all the thank yous in the chat there. That's great. And we will see you next time.
Thank you to everyone who attended.